Thanks be to God.
A mother's in the kitchen making blueberry pancakes for her 5- and 3-year-old sons. The boys begin to argue over who gets the first pancake. The mother, seeing an opportunity for a lesson, says to her boys, "If Jesus was sitting here, he'd say, 'Let my brother have the first pancake. I'll wait.'" The older brother thinks for a moment, smiles, and looks at his little brother and says, "Okay, you be Jesus." I'm Connie Bowman, a grateful member of this St. Andrew's community. I'm also a co-mentor with John Alden of our Education for Ministry program here. It's a great way to immerse yourself in our faith, explore your spiritual gifts in a very small, supportive community. We're starting to register people for next year, and we hope you will come and try EFM. Dina will actually be mentoring next year. It's going to be great. So ask any of us about it. We highly recommend it. What I love about our readings today is the way Jesus describes the fullness and the flow of God's abundant love. It's a new technology for the disciples. And we all know how new technology can be for some of us. Some of us take to it easily, like Hannah. But for many of us, new technology can be downright scary and really confusing. Like my husband and the patient Verizon guy this week who installed internet in my parents' home. They had never had it before. Hi, Mom. I love you, by the way. They carefully walked them through it step by step. Jesus explains this new technology to the disciples. And today's gospel reading takes place the night before Jesus's arrest, trial, and death. He probably had a lot on his mind, but here he is focused on preparing the disciples for his departure and absence. He wants to make sure they understand just how this new technology, this abundant flow of love works between God and Jesus, between Jesus and the disciples, and in the community. "As the Father has loved me," he says, "so I have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love." And one more thing completes the circuit. Jesus says, "Love one another as I have loved you." My electrician dad taught me about three-way circuits for a 7th grade science project. A three-way circuit is when you have two switches that operate one light fixture. They're often at opposite sides of the room for convenience, so we don't have to get up from our chair and walk too far to turn on a light. New technology is supposed to make our lives easier, right? The switches must create a complete circuit for the current to flow and the light to come on. And when both switches are in the same position, the circuit is complete. If one switch is up and one switch is down, no current, no light. My dad was so excited to teach me all about this new technology. This farewell discourse between Jesus and his disciples also reminds me of when my kids were teenagers. I'd be heading out the door to run a few errands, and I left them with so many instructions at the last minute. "Hey, can you just pay attention to me for a minute? Look, I'll only be gone for a little while. Can you please just get along? I love you, and I'm only saying this for your own good. Please, no fighting. Seriously, look out for one another. I love you. Love you. I love you, Mom." We want our kids to care about each other, to stay close, but the truth is we can teach it and encourage it, but we sure can't force it. I learned about this from another mother who also happens to be an Episcopalian. Pig. Her name is Clemmy. and she's one of the many animals that live on the campus of the Canterbury Cathedral in England. There are goats and ducks, chickens, birds, tortoises, cats, and pigs. Clemmy is the mother pig. Now, we know a lot of moms were overly busy with their kids this past year, but let me just tell you about Clemmy the pig's busy quarantine. During lockdown, she had not one, but 2 litters. She delivered something like 20 piglets in a very short time. It's all right there on YouTube. Some of you are more familiar with raising pigs than I am, but I recently learned that a pig's gestation period is 114 days. And that's a little less than 4 months. On the first day of spring back in March, Clemmy had just given birth to 10 babies. 3 of them had spots like their dad, Winston, and the rest looked more like their mama, a pale light pink color. Clemmy tried to get some rest as the dean of the cathedral, Robert Willis, in full vestments, from head to toe black. He sat close by on the dusty barn floor, reading from the Book of Common Prayer. The piglets scrambled around their exhausted mother, jockeying for best position, their newborn eyes just barely open. They climbed over and atop one another, their little legs still unsteady. They rooted around, tumbled down, and snuggled in close. They balanced on their back legs and tried to reach up higher for their food. All this as Clemmy lay sprawled on one side, just giving her babies the room they needed to explore and learn and be fed. One feisty spotted piglet maintained his position on Clemmy's far right, and then way over on the left, another baby tried to nurse, but she wasn't having any luck, so she just aggressively nudged her sibling right out of the way, taking his place. And this went on for a while, but eventually all became quiet, save for occasional snorts and snores from Clemmy as her newborn babes filled their tiny bellies. It was the cutest darn thing. And that Clemmy, the way she offered herself, just completely, trusting that her kids would figure things out. They eventually do. I think Clemmy has a better grasp of this love technology than I did as a younger mom. Like Jesus, she simply invites her little ones to come, abide, stay, settle, linger, exhale, relax, and trust. In John's gospel, the disciples have had a 3-year gestation period with Jesus. And in today's passage, Jesus prepares his followers for his imminent death with this final command: love one another. It's crunch time, and Jesus wants his followers to understand that this self-emptying love circuitry that flows from Father to Son to disciples to one another and continues to flow in this way is what will transform and transcend this world. He wants us to get it. But wait, there's more. Jesus is getting ready to die, and he's talking about joy. I have said these things to you so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete. Even as he prepares his friends for the worst possible scenario, Jesus pours out to his disciples an abundance of joy. It sounds a little odd, kind of like preaching about pigs in a pandemic. Jesus shows us what it can look like to lay down one's life for love, for friends who are considered family, to lay down everything else except for the one thing that truly matters: God's love shared. Jesus thoroughly understands this relational technology, how it works, and how we can sometimes undermine and unintentionally interfere with the flow. He wants us to understand it too. I want to get better at it. How about you? Friends, let's be Jesus, abiding in and sharing God's abundant, extravagant, transformative love technology as we continue to mask up, get vaccinated, pray and care for one another, and for all of God's diverse and wondrous creation. A lot of us have had our fill of technology this past year, but Jesus offers a different kind of technology, a technology of love. It's not of this world, but it can help us flourish in our lives and in our relationships. It may seem complicated at first, but with prayer and patience, we will get it down. In the meantime, let's try to remember we've all been like those piglets, a little unsteady on our feet, jockeying for position, frantically rooting around for love, sustenance, and attention. Let us love one another, that our joy may be full, for that is the fruit that lasts.
Amen.
Let us say together the Nicene Creed. We believe in one God,